guys, this is Whitney, and welcome back to another episode of Spastic Chatter. Spastic Chatter is a platform meant to feature those in the cerebral palsy community, and I get together weekly with individuals with CP, like myself, to have a kind of uncensored chat, if you will, about what it's like living with this type of disability. And for this week, I have my friend Ashley, and we've been Facebook friends for a while, like a couple years, and we live in the same state, but we haven't met each other in person because Texas is so big. But she has a pretty awesome story, so I wanted to have her on Spastic Chatter. She is currently an intern because she's working towards her license. She's a licensed she's a counselor. I just totally blanked, but I will let Ashley introduce herself, so I don't mess it up. So Ashley, you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Ashley Moheski. I am 27 years old, almost 28. I live in Texas. I have nonverbal spastic cerebral palsy, and I use an eye-tracking communication device. I can talk a little bit, but not enough to have a full-blown conversation. I'm also in grad school, and I plan to graduate in May.
Awesome. So let me pull up the questions. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna ask. I sent Ashley questions before this. I'm gonna read the question and then she's going to answer. So the first question I asked her was, "What was your childhood like growing up with cerebral palsy?" Do you want to answer that, Ashley?
Aside from doctor appointments, surgeries, and gastrointestinal issues, which I still battle, I had a pretty normal childhood. I had a lot of friends who didn't care that I was different, they just loved me for who I was. I actually was voted prom queen my senior year of high school. Anything that other teenagers went through, I did too, including heartbreaks from boys. Cerebral palsy didn't stop me from doing what I wanted to do.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that you added that anything normal or your average teenager went through, you went through it too, including heartbreaks. Yeah, yep. So the next question I asked her was, "What was your education experience like?"
At the age of 3, I was put in a program called Preschool Program for Children with Disabilities, otherwise known as PPCD, and it's basically preschool special ed in Texas. I was in special ed because my parents didn't know how much cognitive ability I had because I couldn't talk. My mom had some idea because when she would blink at me, I would blink back, but it wasn't enough to know how much cognitive awareness I had. I have no memory of this, but apparently I laughed at a joke that someone had made, but the other students didn't. My teacher made the realization that I was really intelligent, I just needed a way to communicate. I did an evaluation for a device, and when I passed with flying colors, it was decided that I would do half-day PPCD and half-day in the general ed class, just to see how I would do. When I did well on general ed, I was completely removed from special ed. I excelled in regular classes and graduated high school in 2011. I went to my local community college and graduated with my associate's degree in general studies. I transferred to my university and graduated with my bachelor's degree in psychology. And like I said, I am currently in graduate school, which I will discuss in a second.
Very cool. I think it's kind of funny and very, I don't know, cool that your teacher told a joke and you're the only one that got it. That's a very funny story to tell. So the next question I had for Ashley is, what did you are you currently studying in college?
I am currently working on my master's degree in counseling psychology to be a licensed professional counselor.
See, that's what I was trying to say in the introduction, but I just got tongue tied. So, so the next question I asked Ashley was, what made you want to become a licensed professional counselor?
I've always been told I'll make a difference in people's lives, but I didn't know how to turn it into a career. I had no interest in being a therapist until 2014, when God put counseling on my heart. I'll be honest and say that I fought it because why would someone who cannot speak be a therapist? It didn't make sense to me. Sometimes it still doesn't. I finally looked into the counseling profession and I fell in love. I originally wanted to go into vocational rehabilitation counseling, but I don't like the way that Texas runs the profession. I'm sure since you live in Texas, you know what I mean. I decided to go into the mental health field, and it was the best decision I have ever made. I'm currently doing my practicum and it is going really well. I can't wait to see what my future holds in this field.
You know what's funny that you said that, and you're smiling because I know that but I actually have my bachelor's is in voc rehab, and that's the number one reason I did not go into voc rehab is because of the way Texas runs their program. I do not like it, so I totally agree with you on that. Okay, so the next question I asked Ashley is, have you ever faced discrimination for your chosen profession? And if so, how did you handle it?
That is a hard question because the uncertainty that people had were if they could help me reach my goal of being a therapist. For example, the director of my graduate program had his concerns because when I told him I was interested in the program, I used my cell phone to communicate, which was really slow. But he never told me that I couldn't do counseling. His approach was along the lines of, "You want to be a therapist? Let's brainstorm ideas of what can be done to help you reach this goal." There were some tough talks along the way, but he has always believed in me. I think it has to do with the fact that he knows a psychologist with CP who can talk, and he has a family member with severe CP, so before he met me, he had experience with interacting with people who have CP. However, on the other side of the spectrum, during my first semester of grad school, there was a woman who made me feel like crap for wanting to be a therapist. Since she was a psychologist and I was a naive first-year counseling student, I allowed her words to affect me, even though I never gave up. A few months later, I found out that she was let go from her job, and that's when I realized that I can't listen to others' opinions about me. I know I'm doing a crazy thing here, but I think if I wasn't doing this, I wouldn't be fulfilling my purpose.
Exactly. I love that you had that your director of your program was like not even wasn't discriminating against you. I was like all for it, and that lady is dumb, and I'll just leave it at that because I read your Facebook statuses. I keep up with you, and you have that attitude and everything. And I'm just like, yes, girl, just keep going. Yeah. So the next question I had for Ashley is, what is some general takeaways you want for a client to have after a session with you?
Since communication devices use synthesized speech, it can be difficult to display empathy through tone and volume, so I try to overcompensate that by using nonverbal communication and gestures that indicate that I am being empathetic. I just can't verbally express it in a way that sounds comforting. Although it hasn't been a problem, I want clients to know that just because I can't talk doesn't mean that I can't be empathetic. It is just done in a different way. Another thing I want clients to know is that I am not here to inspire them by my disability. When we are in therapy, my disability is not a part of the therapeutic process. Cerebral palsy partly influenced my decision to be a therapist, but it is not the focus when providing treatment to a client.
I love your answer. Like that is so true, and I didn't even, I don't know why, but that didn't even come to my mind until you said it. That like your client seeing you as an inspiration. That did not even come. Oh my God, that is totally true. I could totally see that happening, and then all of a sudden the session is like about your cerebral palsy and not about the client. So I totally agree with you on that one. The next question I asked Ashley is, how important is it to talk about mental health?
Mental health is extremely important to talk about, especially during the global pandemic. At my practicum site, we're seeing a rise in suicide attempts, so we're trying to let people know that we are here for them. In fact, I will be recording a video on the importance of self-care in a few weeks. I have also mental health is just as important as physical health. No one should ever feel ashamed for battling a mental health issue. Once we start talking about mental health, it is my hope that the stigma will be broken, but we have a long way to go before that happens.
Exactly. That's kind of why I asked you the question, is because the times that the world is in today, mental health is going to plays a big part in a person's everyday life right now. So, the next question I wanted to kind of get to know Ashley more on a personal level and kind of get away from her career for a little bit. So I asked her, what are some of her favorite hobbies?
I don't really have a lot of hobbies because school takes up my time, but I like writing. Because I can't talk, writing helps me to process what's going on in my mind. I also like to read pretty much anything that is not school related, except for scary things.
Yeah, I feel you on that one. I like to write too, because I feel like when somebody reads what I write, they don't see my they don't know that I have cerebral palsy. Like they're just reading what I write, and then I can totally relate on the scary things. I don't like scary things either. So no. So at the end of every episode, I ask my guests if they have any advice for others, and I did the same for Ashley.
Whatever you are going through, don't lose hope. The situation you are in now is not your final destination. Life with cerebral palsy taught me that my future was not defined by my current circumstance. It was how I handled my obstacles, no matter how hard they were.
Awesome. And to end this, where can people follow you on social media?
You can follow me on Facebook by just typing in my first and last name. However, I don't add people I don't know, so please just use the follow button.
That's awesome. So, thank you, Ashley, for agreeing to be on Spastic Chatter. I really enjoyed having you and putting a face to a name, because like I said, we've known each other for like 2 or 3 years, so we've never actually video chatted. So well, thank you. And for anyone that wants to be on an episode of Spastic Chatter, there's always a link in the description, or you can just comment on this video wherever you see it. And check back next week for another episode of Spastic Chatter. Thanks. Bye.